colleague, but there are ways to navigate this, right? It might just mean that you find a trusting colleague, male colleague you can work with, and who can also help make the necessary introduction to the community to establish the relationship before you could go on with the goal of your research and the why you first came into the community. So I'll stop here and let Sandra talk next. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, Sandra, go ahead.
Thank you, Awa. I like how she proposes that I go next. Fine. My submission is also not far from ours. As I carry on my career in the banking sector, the agriculture sector, I may say, has quite a lot of challenges as compared to any other. Of course, there's the one challenge that Awa has just talked about, the peculiarity of the areas of operations of agriculture, and the people, of course, having to execute my duties. I don't have to sit in office. I have to go out to the field to look out for prospects that will take on my products, to appraise them, because the credit cycle requires that we do a good appraisal before you can lend out money. So all that we have gone through it, and it exposes you to distant and rural areas. You will not find a farmer in the middle of the town. The typical producing farmers that I look out to finance really are quite far in the rural areas. So the peculiarity of such areas and the distance that is involved, the sparse populations of the people in the rural areas is quite challenging. You leave the urban centers to go deep in the villages to source them out, and it's quite scary, especially for the ladies. However, I feel some of those challenges have been capped. I really appreciate my institution, Opportunity Bank, for their endeavor to uphold, to embrace technology and technology-led solutions, and having to increase the branch network is one of the solutions to such barriers. So, like I mentioned earlier, that I'm located in a rural network of the bank, it is easier to access a customer or a woman farmer when you're closer to them than having to run from the urban centers to look out to them. And technology has also done a good job here. It's farmers and women farmers are a call away. You can just give them a call, find them, and work on them. The digital products that the bank has put up for farmers are also another solution to curb that challenge. We can conclude transactions using phones. It makes work quite easy, though you may not completely have to go away from the movements to up country in the rural areas to meet the ladies. The other challenge that I've come also related to institutions is the less priority that is given to agriculture. Every institution, organizations, they have all given less priority to agriculture, not because it is the norm, but ideally the nature and setting of agriculture, its risky nature is what distances institutions from giving it priority. So you can hardly make it through. You can hardly hit your target. You're having competitions in the same cycle, in the same environment, but yours is quite a risk that not everyone else will take up. So, and sorry, I'm taking it quite long, but to maneuver through the professional careers, especially in the financing institutions, it is numbers. The more you reach out, the more you recruit, the more you grow the portfolio. that is how your leadership and influential strengths can be realized. So it becomes hard to compete in an environment where there are so many other sectors that are in a low risk, that are low risk areas, and anyone else would happily work within them than agriculture. So the competition becomes a bit stiff there. But I'm also happy with my institution, now Opportunity Bank. They try to give priority to agriculture, and they try to bring in partners or stakeholders with exceptional funds and guarantees to make it easy to lend out monies to the women out there that need it. The specific arrangements and programs for women are enabled because of the fundings and the guarantees that are given out to help the bank lend. I may stop it at that. So Maria can go next. Thank you.
Well, talking about barriers, for me, I'll talk about barriers personally, but I'll also go into the context of what I found out through the research we did with young people, especially opinions from young women, so that you can also have an idea of what that looks like. Personally, as I mentioned, some of my barriers were my cultural build-up or my family members or the authority that they had over me. But then I'm also going to talk about barriers navigating agribusiness. As a young woman, I have had so many of those. We are currently in a phase where we are looking for investors to invest in our company. And as young women who started an agri company, I have had talks with people that ask me, are you sure this is your company? Are you sure? And I'm wondering, why are they second guessing? Because I don't think that same question would be given to a young man who has started a company. If nothing, they would be very proud, you know. And if it was any young woman, that would threaten their self-esteem. And I mean, I'm not easily threatened, so of course I wasn't. But if it was for any young woman out there that is trying to come out and they are made to second guess their choices or questioned about their dreams or what they want to achieve, that is a very big barrier, because I don't think this applies to the males who are out there trying to do the same thing. And as I said, of course, getting investment as young women can be very tricky. And then most importantly, for young women out there, when I was doing the research with the youth think tank, one of the things that we found is that the dissemination of information that are non-specifically, that are targeting young women, but are not designed, or the channels used do not actually reach the young women, you know, because we try to put out, you know, finding opportunities or scholarships in agriculture or whatever it is on social media or on these big channels. But if we know that most of the people involved in agriculture are rural young women in rural areas, how sure are we that they have access to internet? Are we using the right channels to make sure that they get the opportunities? Because I was lucky. I got this opportunity because after my lower high school, I got a MasterCard scholarship and got into a very big prestigious school. So of course I had access to this information. But this does not apply to all young women that are in the rural area of Uganda that study in a government-aided situation, or that study in what we call universal secondary education schools. They don't have access to this information. So one of the biggest barriers to this is that the dissemination of information doesn't come in the right channels. And there are so many opportunities. I've seen them for young women. But are they in the right channels? Can they reach the young women that we want them to reach to? And then the other thing is, the other barrier that I find is being threatened. You know, we are in a sector where we already have a lot of competition from older, you know, I would say older people that have more experience. And most of them, or some of them, are not forthcoming. I know that I don't know as much as I do in agriculture, or I still need to learn. No one knows that much. I still need to learn as a young woman starting up an agri business. But then for me to reach out to someone who has had experience in this sector, and for this person to say, well, I just don't see it. I don't see that you can do that. That is hurting. That is damaging on all levels for young women out there. So I think that the barriers that we need to break and the things that have supported me is I have great mentors. I've always gotten to points where I'm like, okay, now this is it. I don't think I can do anymore. And then I've gone back to my mentors and they've supported me. They've reminded me why I started. They've reminded me of my passion and the goals I've set and how this, is something that I want to do not only for myself, but for all the young girls out there that have dreams that they feel like they can realize. Thank you.
Sorry, I had trouble finding my video and unmute button because I was taken in by all of your comments. We have a couple more minutes in this block. I wonder, Awa or Sandra, all of you have commented around the role of mentors and others who have been with you or supported you. I wonder if you can comment a little, do you find that those are formal mentorship opportunities or are you seeking those out and it's much more informal? Who'd like to take that?
I can go first.
Mm-hmm.
So in my case, it's mostly been informal mentorship situations. And I think one thing many young people don't realize early on is that you need to be willing to put yourself out there and reach out to people because people are willing to talk to you when you reach out to them. I mean, it doesn't always work all the time. Like maybe out of 10 emails you send, one person will get back to you, but that's still a win. So it's that mentality of being willing to reaching out to people whose work you see and you're interested in, and you're more interested in them guiding you and imparting upon you the path they've gone through you, and also sharing your ideas, like having a sounding board to make sure that you're on the right track. So I've mostly had informal mentorship situations, and sometimes they just happen. Like I may have a conversation with someone and I find them very inspiring and very helpful, and I ask them if I can keep in touch and reach out later on. But I do know that there are also some formal mentorship setups that exist. Like for instance, the American Association of Applied Economics has a formal mentorship process set up for young women agricultural economists, and helping them through the publication process and also navigate the academic track. But I'm not aware of one that's set up for those specifically interested in the policy sector. So I think both do exist and both have value, as long as the connection between both people works, because that's really important too, because you need to be able to connect freely and speak freely without barriers.
I may say I've received both formal and informal mentorship. The formal one has basically been in the lines of my career, personal career development, and of course institutional development of careers. It's an opportunity that they give us, the ladies, more often to pursue and grow our careers in the lines that we desire. I've received much more mentorship from my work supervisors. They have trained me on what to do, and they still do. But I also feel the on-the-job training works out. It pushes you into the challenges of agriculture out there, and definitely you just have to grow within them or even outgrow them to beat the barriers in those lines of profession. I've seen fellow leaders in the banking sector and the inspiration that I get from them is also an added advantage for me to grow more and more into the agriculture career, and the political leadership, I may say, is another inspiration for me. I look so much to the former agriculture minister in Uganda, in the Ugandan parliament. She was a strong woman out there. She is no longer a minister, but she has still pursued the desire and the passion to help young women in agriculture. Feel she's doing a tremendous work tirelessly. I look up to people of the kind, beyond my professional cycles. That's how I've managed to receive mentorship. I don't want to think that it comes to us every time we need it. No, sometimes we need to press on and look for the mentorship ourselves to see us grow in these careers. Thank you.
So what I think I'll do now is we had a fourth panelist who I see is actually on our Zoom, but she sent us a video because her connectivity last week was a little rough, and so we weren't sure it was going to work out. The video comes from, and apologies as I try and get her name right, Chamaka Queen Amazundiro Umwendunukwe. Hopefully later she'll give me the thumbs up that I did that okay. And she sent us a short video, which I'll play now, and then we'll move into the last of our themes. So hopefully I will be able to figure out how to do this with sound, and you'll be able to enjoy this video from Queen.
Hey, good evening. I was asked to make a short clip video. Okay, let's go there. I'm Mama Zundiro Queen. Yes, by name, by citizen, I'm a Nigerian, and by tribe, I'm Igbo. Yes, I'm Igbo. Okay, I'm the CEO and founder of Agro Flavor Farms. What we practice or what we champion more is an organic agriculture. We ensure the practice, we ensure the implementation, we ensure the approach. Not just us, we also drive initiative to make sure that the youth, the women, they see a way to change their narrative towards how they use the land and how they produce, thereby ensuring sustainable food production. So we advocate for climate change, we advocate for SDG 2, we advocate for SDG 12 and 13. So majorly for me, what leadership by definition is, in my own simplest name, without any emotional compromise, I will say that leadership has to do with the ability to build followers, the ability to be trusted, the ability to lead, the ability to deplete some legitimate characteristics, like in character, like in responsibility, like in strength, like in relevancy, showing your manpower when it's needed. So I believe leadership has to do with ability to stand and stand right. So there's so many people, so many women I look at to when it comes to leadership role, like the role model, the kind of mentors. I won't use the word mentor, but I will use the word role model. People like Agnes Alibata, maybe you might know her. Yes, she's the founder of Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, and currently now she's the UN Secretary General Specialist Envoy for the Food System Summit 2020-2021. So she advocates for agriculture so immensely. Why I'm actually driven by her famous and by her effort is that she's ensuring a prosperous and a peaceful Africa through sustainable agricultural growth, improving productivity and livelihood of millions of families across Africa. Like she's trying to connect dots between farmers who are feeling the soil, who are feeling the sun, who are feeling the climate, with entrepreneurship kind of levels. I don't know how to put it, but she's good. And looking at people like that, I believe that I will get there and I will do better. So now when it comes to how leadership can help women in agriculture is in fact is so enormous, because you see that women, they do more of the work, they do more of the duty, they do more of the action there, but at the end of the day their voices are less heard. So I believe this should be changed. And why is this so? Is that there's no much, or let's say there's minimal number of women in the leadership position, and there's also a very big disproportionate mismatch between decision making and the voices of the rural women. So I believe all these gaps should know how to be closed, and for this to be closed, women should be given chance. Their voices should be heard. Like they should take part in the decision making exercise. I believe with this, problems concerning gender inequality in agriculture will be solved. Then I believe I'm a woman leader, yes, because for me to have used my potential and personal traits in my best reflective way to have bring up an idea that has to do with science-based agriculture, which I said earlier, organic agriculture, to start solving issues in my local community. Even though I'm starting local, I believe I will go global, and it will be so pretty soon. So that is how it is. So for now, let me stop here. See you on the inside. Thank you. Bye.
All right. What a nice place for us to be in, because we were going to ask what next for you. And I think Queen knew exactly how to take advantage of her absence by presencing herself through the video. And so it's my pleasure to take the panelists to the next and final theme before we go into questions. And the question, or the brief questions around this, are really what next for you? Young women in Africa are said to be running away from agriculture. Is that true? And if it is, what would you tell them? Ask them back. It's working for you. What would you tell them to see the potential in agriculture? And what would you tell the whole lot of us on this forum and out there? What would you say to policymakers? And I think this is also a great place to read out the question of Joanne, which is very much aligned to this theme. And she says, this is such an excellent session. Thanks to the working group chairs for hosting. One question I have is, what these women still feel is most needed to help propel professionalism in agriculture for them and generally? Is it funding? Is it tech transfer? Is it mentoring? Is it financing? Is it research? And she says, thank you so much to these women for sharing their stories and educating us. I thought I should just honor Joanne's question because it's very much aligned to the theme. And so please feel free to reflect upon that question as you also go, as you sort of make your final call to fellow young women and the policymakers. I'll ask now Maria perhaps to go first, then Awa, and then Sandra. Thank you.
Thank you so much. For me, if I'm speaking as Maria, what I need right now, investment, please. Someone please come and invest. But I know that more than the funding, what most young women need, what most entrepreneurs or young women that are starting careers in agriculture need is mentoring. I got that because I was lucky to go to a very unique university that has a very unique curriculum that not only teaches me about the educational aspect, but also integrates into business management, professionalism, how to deal with people. But then most young women don't have that. So besides funding and making sure that information reaches young women, I think they need mentoring and support. And I think just asked about what's next, how my career fits into my life aspirations, I think. So for me, I'm not only going to be a business owner, I'm not only a business owner, but I'm also working on my career as a social innovator and entrepreneur that is going to be teaching young people how to scout informal businesses, how to identify opportunities and take advantage of them. I've been lucky to do I wrote my first training manual with Food for the Hungry, and it is to help young people in communities that have not had an education or that have dropped out of school to be able to use resources around them to scout informal businesses and be able to take advantage of literally or opportunities around them. And moving forward for my business, I hope we do get people that respect young women doing business that come to invest in our company and we continue to grow and to also continue growing as a person. But for most young women out there, what they basically need, as I said, is mentorship and funding and a nudge into the right direction. If a young woman is out there and is listening to this, what I would tell them is be consistent. Be consistent about your dreams. It doesn't matter what you are going through right now. I've probably not lived through your reality and I probably never will. But be consistent with your goals, with yourself. Be disciplined, be consistent, and have integrity. People cannot fight that when you're working as a young woman. Be disciplined, be consistent, and have integrity. Work with people and push yourself, as I was said earlier. Push yourself, reach out. If people don't respond, that's okay. Keep reaching out. Be consistent and keep going for what you want. That is the fight that we are in right now. And to policymakers, one of the biggest problems around helping young women is that we go and educate them about you should be consistent, you should go for your dreams, but we don't look at the society that is built around them. In this aspect, I mean that we go and in a family of like 5 people, we educate a young woman, but this person still has 4 other people that are influencing her decisions. So we need to educate those as well. Private institutions, governments, or non-government organizations that are designing programs for young women, you have to consider that most young women are found in settings where they are answerable to husbands or brothers or fathers. And these are people that contribute to what they choose to do. So as much as we want to design programs for these young women, let us also be very mindful of the people that influence their choices and their decisions and educate them as well. Why propelling young women is very important, because if we keep educating young women, they're still going to be confined in a system where only 5%, actually this is real statistics, only 15% of women in most of Africa own land, you know. So we are still going to be kept in that cycle. So let's not only educate young women and create opportunities for them, but then let's also make sure that the society around them is well educated to know that young women have the potential and they have the ability and they can propel this agricultural sector forward. I think I'm speaking too much. I'll give the word to Sandra, I think.
Okay, thank you, Mariam. I don't differ much from her view on that theme. I also still believe that in many developing countries, such as Uganda, where I am, often women have limited their ability to make strategic decisions. And why this is so is because they are less informed. They do not have information. I still believe that agriculture is a the women should pursue, the young women should engage in, because it is paying, it is an open ground to dig in for any person who desires to to earn a living or to grow a career, agriculture is a sector that I foresee is taking on the economy. If the young women do not get involved, then ideally they will be pushed out of the economy. If the growth of the economy is surroundings much more around agriculture. I get to know this because I feel I'm exposed right from my career, my profession. The exposure that I get gives me information to know that actually is a hanging fruit for many people out there, including the young women. So the women out there, I still urge them to pursue agriculture along or across the value chain. It's quite wide. It's not only going to the garden to produce. It also involves the marketing. It also involves the trade, the transport, everything. The chain is quite long. So we can't be limited. What is limiting us is probably information. But for as long as we are able to get information in forms that are accessible and appealing to change the reality that people know about agriculture being a hard sector to penetrate through, we can give it a try. We can, much as we can, I still believe that, like Maria has said, if you put your mind into it, if you really accept that it is a business that you can do out there to earn a living, to succeed as a young woman in life, then it's worth giving a try. Let's give it a try. Let's accept mentorship and let's seek information. Where institutions and governments are not availing information, we can still try to look it out. But still, I urge the institutions, the governments to give it priority because it's the way to go now. The rudimentary methods may not apply. They are what cause us to think that agriculture is actually not a good venture for anyone else. But with those rudimentary methods transformed into modern, then agriculture can be given a smart position. When um, um, information barrier is also given a try, if it's given an eye, then agriculture's face is really going to change in the developing countries, especially in Africa. So I really believe there is potential in agriculture. I don't see it taking a slow move. I really see it on quite a high pace. And if anyone does not pick interest and pursue it, ideally you'll be left out of the economy. It's the information I have for the young ladies out there. The fears that they have should be put aside. We should take away the common norm, the inferiority complex, by reflecting on the examples that we have. The women in business, the young women in leadership, those should be influence for us to actually get corners and stand out as young women to grow careers and succeed in life. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria and Sandra. You've shared so much wisdom. I was just listening. I'm like, wow, okay. So for me, what I have to add is that both Sandra and Maria had really great points, and I want to pick on one particular thing that Maria mentioned. She said that she was involved in a youth led research, and during that research, she got to talk to young people and hear directly from them about their challenges. And when we think about the current state of the evidence, there is a lot that tells us that on average, women tend to have lower access to productive inputs like fertilizers, improved seeds, agricultural technologies, finance compared to their male peers. So there is quite a bit of evidence out there. So now maybe what needs to be done is to work on the uptake of that evidence. And I see that young African researchers have a role to play in that. Like let's take the evidence, let's bring it to the policymakers, the decision makers, the donors, and tell them this is what we see. This is what the evidence is telling us about what works in our setting. How can you help us make it happen? Because one thing is to produce the evidence, the research, but another thing is to make it actionable. And I think that is what will help us get that thing, that idea of gender transformative action. But I just learned that term from Joyce. If we want to address social norms and structural barriers that are currently preventing women from achieving their potential, we need to be able to make the evidence actionable. And I also want to touch on another point that has to do with the fact that young Africans are leaving agriculture, the African farmers are getting older, but that might not actually be the case in all the countries. Like there is a recent research that was published, and it's based on data in Rwanda, Ghana, Uganda, Zambia, Nigeria, and other countries. And it shows that on average, African farmers are between 32 and 39 years old. So what this shows is that we don't have an aging farming population. Like what we need to be thinking about is ways to make it, to make it profitable for them to be more attracted by it so that they can derive a sustainable source of livelihood. And to Joanne's question earlier, the one that Joyce repeated, like what is needed to support young women in ag research, for instance, I'm going to speak about ag research. I think mentorship is definitely key. Like anyone interested in that field should reach out to people who are established researchers in that field or current students to find out more about it and learn about the implications, the career implications, as well as the rigor it requires. And these mentors are also important to keep you grounded when all the equations and formulas start going over your head, like to remind you why you joined that field in the first place. And I also hate to say this, but it's important to brush up on your math skills for any degree in applied economics or agricultural economics, as it's called sometimes. And believe me, after the first introductory courses, the method courses, things do get better and you get involved in interesting projects and you actually get to work on projects that have a potential to be used by policymakers to make action so that it's not all abstract. And these were the last point I had from my end. So I'm going to pass it on to the moderators.
Great, thank you so much. I'll just let you all know Joyce got last minute notice. She had to leave for a meeting, an important meeting at the top of the hour. So she dropped off, and so I'll take us through to the end of today's session. We're at a point where we're open to questions from audience. Those of you who have been listening in, please drop them in via the chat. I'll give you a moment to do that. And as we're doing that, we probably have about 10 minutes, I think, for Q&A. Is that right? Yeah. And I think one question that I have that we had discussed with Awa and Sandra and Maria last week was this idea that in Africa, there young people are running away from agriculture. And I wonder if, as people are thinking about questions that they'd like to ask you, could you comment on that? Are young people running away from agriculture? Is that true? Why don't we start with you, Awa, and then you can choose who to pass the baton to.
Sure. So I can only speak from looking at what the literature has been producing recently. And it doesn't seem like young people are running away from agriculture. So if you think about the demographic pyramid of Africa, and even life expectancy, it's not as long as in the global north. So there are very few farmers who are above the 66 years old threshold. So what this means is that the majority of people who are actively involved in farming activities tend to be in the 30 to 40 years age group. And that makes sense when you think about the demographic distribution you're looking at. But one thing that is sure is that farming activities are seasonal. They tend to be part-time activities, and many of us know that many African youth tend to be involved in multiple sources of livelihoods at once. So that's what is happening right now. Even if they're involved in farming activities, they also have something else going on the side. It could be non-farm enterprises not related to agriculture at all. So in general, I think, and based on what the literature is saying, is that young people are still very much involved in agricultural activities, like even if it's on a part-time basis. And what they're looking for are ways to make it profitable, so maybe it can become their full-time activities. And these are the type of things we need to keep thinking about. And let me say, Sandra, I'll pass on the baton to Sandra. It's maybe Maria, you can go next.
I don't know what happened to Sandra. I hope she connects again. So I don't think it's entirely true. I think that was true a few years before, but then we have a new era of agri-tech where very many young people that I personally know and I don't know of are actively finding solutions for agriculture enterprises along the value chain. So I don't think it's entirely true that young people are running away from agriculture, but then I think it's true that according to the research due to the youth think most young people are more interested in off-farm activities, commercialization, value addition. That is where their interest is. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are running away from agriculture. In this context, for me, I feel like young people are finding their passion in technology or financing or whatever other off-farm activities are there in agriculture, and some are even more interested in the science aspect of agriculture. We talk of, genetics and what have you, and I think that is a good thing. So instead of saying young people are running away from agriculture, I think people should start saying that young people are diversifying in agriculture. I think people should start saying, I'm very sorry for this, you're getting background. I think young people should start saying that, people should start saying that young people are diversifying in agriculture, because what we see right now is a trend of young people involving in agriculture technologies, in sciences, and all of them are giving solutions that make agriculture better. So I think that is the new reality. That may have been what was happening before, but I don't think it's a reality now.
Thank you. And let me see, there is a question specifically for Sandra. If she, I see she's still on the line, but Sandra, if you're there, Felix asks, being actively involved in agri-finance, how have you overcome the barriers of access to finance by women and generally youth? Which kind of guarantees have you seen to be more targeted and successful when applied? I'll give you, let's see, I think you look like you're still there, so let's see. All right, we'll come back to her if she comes online again. Howard Kavisi says women should be encouraged to take up agricultural courses and competence-based agricultural courses from youth, hands-on skills and research in agriculture fields. How can this be increased to significant levels? Any assurance for their mentorship training on diverse agricultural activities and opportunities in agriculture? Urban farming for women who have no access to vast resources, how would this be encouraged to higher levels? Anyone want to answer Harwood's question? How can we increase the take-up by women of agricultural courses and competence-based agricultural courses? Go ahead, Awa.
I'll try to share some thoughts on this. So I think unlike the other sciences, hard sciences, rather like math and physics, the STEM fields, it doesn't seem like women are necessarily running away from agriculture, but both Sandra and Maria said a few things that might point to the reason why maybe women are not engaging as much in these courses. The fact that if you grew up in a rural setting and you are used to the drudgery of farming, you might not want to go into that field. So I think maybe one way to encourage this is to show these women role models like Maria and Sandra, who are thriving in the sector and making a good living out of it. So I think it's that idea of trying to help people project themselves beyond their current state.
Maria, do you want to add anything there?
Yeah, so if I understood the question well, I've been in the chat trying to read the question, and if I got it well, it's about how can we assure that young women have agriculture training. And I mean, this is going to greatly depend on where they're located, the kind of organizations working in this area. And first of all, I think the first thing we have to do is to teach young women to take that initiative, you know, to go out of their way to look for this kind of training. And I know that someone would argue, but they are not available everywhere. I know that, and I'm saying in case they are available, we teach them to look out for these trainings, to actively want to learn. And then I think this person also put a question about urban farming for women who have no access to vast resources. How would this be encouraged to significant levels? I think with urban farming, this is a trend that is going on. And I know that there are so many people out there that have made videos, you know, simple videos of how you can make DIYs of like plastic bottles or, you know, like old things and recycle them and be able to get, you know, a small urban garden. So I think, as I said, it's the initiative to want to learn for the young women, to look for these materials. As I said, it also depends on where these women are located. Are they rural women? Are they women in urban centers? Do they have access to internet? Can they look for these videos online? Can they follow through? Can they want to learn? I think that is how we can push them, by telling them, okay, there are options, but you need to also take the initiative to want to learn.
Great. We got an email saying Sandra is having technical difficulties. Let me see real quick if she's back online. Okay, perhaps not. So we're pretty much at the end of our Q&A. I would like to invite Maria and Awa, and if Sandra can hear us, to share one last thought that you have for young women who are considering pursuing agriculture or a career in agriculture. So I'll give you a little bit of time to think about that. One of the things we really wanted to do with this session was to create as much space as possible for Maria, Awa, and Sandra to share their experiences, and I hope that we've achieved that. I'm gonna close out now and say thank you to them for being able, for taking the time to share this space with us and their ideas, and thank you to the working groups for creating this event. And now I'm going to pass it back to Maria and Awa for you to have the final words on, what advice would you give to young women? And then when they're wrapped up, I think, let's see, it looks like then Sabrina and Paul will formally close us out.
Okay, I can start.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, what I want to say to anyone interested in pursuing a degree in agricultural economics or applied research with the idea of using it to inform policy decision making at the country level among policymakers is to do your research, find out what different programs are doing, find out if they are doing research you are interested in pursuing, because the reality is that when you start your academic journey, oftentimes you don't have a good idea of what you really are interested in, but it's always good to know what specific departments are working on and if it's somehow aligned to what you're interested in. And don't hesitate to reach out. If anyone is on this call and wants to reach out to me to talk more, please feel free to do so. I'm always available to talk to anyone and help them brainstorm ideas as they embark on this journey, and find a mentor. That's always the thing I tell people. It's very important in helping you staying anchored and grounded throughout this process. Thank you for everyone for listening and for joining.
Okay, so I guess my final words, I'm so happy this is ending. This has been a really interesting discussion. But to a young woman out there, I want to just tell you that your dreams are valid. And I may not have walked the path you've walked. I may not have experienced what you've experienced, and I have no idea what you're going through as a woman. And I wish that the world was an equal place where opportunities are easy for us, where we own land, where we are pushed easily to go for what we want. I can't assure that, but I can tell you that if you're disciplined, if you work hard, if you have integrity, and you are committed, you will get there. You just have to be consistent. Be consistent for anyone who wants to start a business or has a business as a young woman in agriculture, of course, or you have a dream to do something in agriculture. No matter how hard this seems right now, be consistent, have integrity, be disciplined, and keep standing up for what you want. Keep showing up every day, even when it doesn't make sense at all, because I know sometimes it doesn't. Even when it doesn't make sense at all for you to show up and keep doing what you have to do, please keep doing it. I'm telling you, small efforts are going to amount to something big, and you will definitely get there. Get mentors. Talk to people. I support Awa on this. Get mentors. You don't know everything. Be open to learn. Use all the resources you can. Reach out and try to educate yourself as much as you can. That is one thing that people will not take away from you, your education and your knowledge. Be knowledgeable so that when you start speaking to people, they find sense in what you're saying. Educate yourself and empower yourself so that you can face whatever the agriculture sector throws at you, I would say. And I wish you luck to every young woman out there in agriculture. I'm cheering you on, and I really wish you very good success and luck. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much for those last closing and very inspiring words. I want to thank all of the panelists, Awa, Sandra, and Maria, as well as Queen, who sent us the video. I think a recurring theme throughout the discussion has been the importance of mentorship and role models. And I'm just so pleased that we've been able to provide this platform for these three young women who are themselves role models. And I hope you all have enjoyed as much as I have being able to hear their inspiring personal stories of how they forged their careers in agriculture, whether that be in agribusiness, agricultural research, or ag finance, as well as some of the great insights into how those of us working on economic empowerment or youth in agriculture can best support young women. I also want to thank Joyce and Christina for your skillful facilitation and all your help in planning and shaping this event, along with the other co-chairs, Christy Olenek and Matthew Bremen from the Youth and Development Work Group, and for bringing this idea to us, and of course, Mark Castellino of the Food Security and Agriculture Work Group. Also, I want to let you know to keep an eye out for an upcoming Food Security and Agriculture Work Group event coming probably later in November, possibly early December. We're still settling on the date, but it'll be in that time frame. And that'll be on what makes agricultural innovation happen, where we'll have a panel sharing lessons from Israel and beyond. And I can tell you from the planning sessions we've had so far, this is going to be a really interesting event. So I hope to see you there. And now I'll just hand it back to Paul Sherman for the final word. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us.
Thanks, Sabrina. And thank you, Maria, Awa, Sandra, for your thoughts and providing your commentary. It was really, I think, a valuable conversation. And thank you to Christina, as Sabrina said, thank you to Christina, as well as Joyce for moderating this session, along with the co-chairs, obviously, for their support in putting this together. One last thing I will say is there is a survey in the chat box. We really appreciate your feedback as we move forward in producing our further events. As Sabrina said, we have another food security and ag event in the works for later on this year, towards the end of the year. So hopefully you'll be able to join us for that as well. As I said, there are 2 instances of it the survey being posted in the chat box, so feel free to fill that out. We really, as I said, we would really appreciate your feedback. And with that, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you continue to stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to seeing you at a future event. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone.